Hello and welcome to the Rays of Hope program brought to you by the Purchase Area Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center. I'm your host for today, Mary Foley, and we have a topic that we believe at the center that you need to be aware of, but it is a topic that is heavy to hear and hard to understand. So with that in mind, we do ask that you will stay with us to learn about a very important need in our community, and we're going to be challenging you today to look beneath the surface and learn how you can create a safer community for all. I'd like to welcome our guest today, Lupita Shomanski.
Thank you.
You serve as the Human Trafficking Outreach Coordinator for our agency. So tell us, that's a long title. So what does a Human Trafficking Outreach Coordinator do?
Well, in a short words, human trafficking is slavery. And what I'm trying to do is the prevention part, that the community know what is this and prevent that it happen if it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And the protection part, to put together all the different efforts from the different agents to help that people. Mm-hmm. That is, in short words, what I'm trying to do.
So prevention and protection.
Yes.
Prevention of human trafficking, protection of victims. And what a tremendous job that it is.
It's huge.
Well, we are going to start today's program with a piece of video that depicts what human trafficking is, and so we'll be back on the other side. So Lupita, if I'm a viewer and I'm watching, just as I have many times when I've seen that ad, I say to myself, this looks like something that happens in New York City. This looks like something that happens in anywhere but Western Kentucky.
Well, it can be as easier as a runaway teenager mm-hmm. that have to perform sex for shelter within the 72 hours mm-hmm. that she left home. You really think that that's not happening here? Mm-hmm. And that is human trafficking.
And so let's start there. Let's start by defining what is human trafficking.
Well, I want to tell what the law says.
Okay.
We have the Trafficking Victims Protection Act in 2000 that was referred as 2003, 2005, and 2008. And the legal definition is severe forms of trafficking in person is the sex trafficking in which commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, and coercion, or with which a person induced to perform such an act has not attained 18 years old, or the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjection, involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery.
So when I hear that definition, what I understand is that any act of sex that is exchanged for something of value, whether that be food, shelter,
yes,
clothing, something of a commercial value, it then falls into that category of human trafficking, so long as it has the elements of force, fraud, or coercion, if the person is over the age of 18.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, and so under the age of 18, it's something of commercial value, and the force, fraud, and coercion criteria do not have to be met.
Do have to be met.
So is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, so when we have, as you mentioned, teenagers that leave home, run away from home, men or boys or girls.
Yes.
And they are, they find themselves in a place where they don't have anything to eat, they don't have anywhere to go, and they are asked to give something of a sexual nature for those basic needs, they are then victims of human trafficking.
Yes, because they are getting a value from them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy that it will be that spontaneous. The people that do this, they approach them, they try to be like nice people that are helping, and at the beginning looks like they are helping, but after a few hours the things start to change. What happened initially is they move them from the place where they are familiar with. Then when they find themselves in a place that they don't know where they are, and they don't know who can help them, is when the things start to change. And they have to do what somebody's asking them to do.
And so, some of the, what are some of the common, what we would call a front for this type of activity, or what are the places where we might find victims that maybe we wouldn't normally think of?
Well, there are this happening in fields, brothels, factories, construction sites, migrant agriculture work, janitorial jobs, restaurants, homes. Is anywhere where the trafficker can get some value.
And so, again, I think there's a shift that has to happen. I think, first of all, we have to realize what it is and that it does happen. And it doesn't necessarily happen just in big cities. It happens in communities just like ours. How prevalent of a problem are we looking at? How frequent?
Let me tell you what is going on in Kentucky.
Okay.
This is Kentucky. From July 7 to January, from July 2007 to January 2011, we found 57 cases with 114 victims, and they were served for our program. And from those 57 cases, 46% were sex trafficking, and 46% were labor trafficking. The other 8% have elements of both.
So 114 victims. 46% sex trafficking, met sex trafficking criteria, 46% labor trafficking criteria,
Yes.
8% an element of both in Kentucky.
In Kentucky. Yeah, we have already 6 agencies working on the program. The last one integrated on the coalition is PASAC to serve the Western Kentucky. The rest of the state has been working on this an average of 2 years.
So, you're talking about that the Purchase Area Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center joined in partnership with the Catholic Charities Rescue and Restore Victims of Human Trafficking.
Yes.
We partnered with them. It's been a year, and we joined that partnership to start addressing the Western Kentucky area.
Yes.
I do think it's important for the viewer to know that in our work, I have the responsibility of trying to secure grant funds to offer programs. This was the opposite. I actually attended a training with this organization and was so, taken back, blown away, I don't know what the right word is, about this issue. I thought, we've got to do something about this. And it wasn't a few months later, they called me and said, we are concerned about the Western Kentucky area. We have reason to think that you have a problem with human trafficking and we want to partner with you. And so that's how the partnership began.
And there is something else. When other areas start caring about this, what happened with the traffickers, they flew. They go where nobody's caring about this, where nobody's paying attention. Then if we don't pay attention now, if we really don't have them here, they will be coming. because the rest of the state is working really hard on this.
So you're saying we're moving them out,
Yes.
and so we have a choice before us, and that is to do nothing and let the traffickers come here, or that is to be aware and start educating and push them.
Yeah, and
hopefully get them, catch them.
Yeah, in case that they are here, well, we are going to catch them. But the most important part is we are going to help those victims, because they will keep trying to do this no matter what, but the victims are there, and that's what we are here to help.
Why do you think human trafficking is such a profitable business? Because am I correct in my knowledge that it profits several $1 billion
It's
a year?
$9 billion of industry. Why? Because the people had two things: has the need, and they want to grow up, they want to get things done, and they trust on the human being. But there are other people that doesn't care about that, and for them it's easier to use a person. When they try to sell a drug, they have to buy and sell that every time. And they sell that one time, but to sell a person, they do that over and over and over. The person became a commodity.
So for a drug trafficker, for example, that return is one-time sale, one-time return.
Yes.
And what you're saying is that human beings have been degraded, if we could, into a commodity that is bought and sold, bought and sold, bought and sold many times. And so the supply and demand principle comes into play. And
you just touched something else, which is the demand. The people should know when they pay for sex, there is something, some human being behind this. And that usually, even we believe otherwise, is not voluntary.
Okay. So you mentioned 3 important elements that a human trafficking victim will be subject to. And from the legal definition, you use the terms force, fraud, and coercion.
Yes.
And what we know about human trafficking is that victims don't have to be victimized by all 3, but by one.
At least one.
And so let's talk to the viewer about what is force, what is fraud, what is coercion.
Let's see. Force. The definition is to compel by physical, moral, or intellectual means. Example: rape, beating, constraint, confinement, causing serious harm or physical restraint.
Okay.
That is force. Fraud. The definition is the intentional perversion of the truth in order to induce another to surrender a legal right. Examples: false offers of employment, marriage, better life, or just staging an illusion. Everyone wants to come to America to get the American dream. But the problem, sometimes they end up in the American nightmare.
I see.
The coercion definition is the tactics used to persuade someone to take a course of action. Examples: the threats of serious harm or physical restraint on an individual or their family. Sometimes they threaten their families back in their countries. A scheme, plan, or pattern intended to cause victims to believe that failure to perform an act will result in repercussions. The abuse or threats of abuse of the legal process. That means sometimes they retain their paper, their identifications, and they cannot show who they are.
So I do see sort of 2 tracks here that I'd kind of like for us to talk about. One is maybe what we're going to call the real and stereotypical view of human trafficking, that it just happens to immigrants that come to this country through force, fraud, or coercion, promise of a better life, and that is a nightmare, just like you said. What seems to be a legitimate offer of employment ends up being anything but a legitimate offer of employment. And then that whole process of being threatened that if they don't do as they're supposed to do in this country, then back home people will suffer. And we've heard examples of traffickers actually having photographs of family members.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
is that a real concern?
Yeah, it's a real concern. Because they know their families. Sometimes the families trust the trafficker, thinking they are helping them, and then give the girl, telling, okay, she's coming to probably be a maid or a nanny, but they think it will be a legitimate work.
Mm-hmm. And so let's use that as an example. That has a name, domestic servitude. So they come for a job that they think is legitimate. And Lupita, you and I think the viewers should know that at these trainings that we've been to, they actually post examples of these job ads. And these are job ads that anyone of us would think is legitimate.
Yes.
And so what would be the life of a domestic servant? What would happen?
What happens is sometimes they make them to work 16, 20 hours a day. They sleep in a small room without bed. They have to sleep on the floor. They hardly eat. They don't allow to go anywhere. They are not get paid, because on top of that they charge them for the shelter and for the food.
And the example of the young girl that we were able to get a glimpse into her story, she used the words, "I was invisible. No one knew I was in the home. No one knew I couldn't get out." She was subjected to nightly sexual assaults with various partners. And we're talking about a 14-year-old girl that no one in the United States, in the community that she was in, even knew she was there.
She was there.
And she said she was invisible. So we have this view that this is happening to migrant workers, that this is happening to people who accept opportunities of various kinds to come into this country. But where I was shocked and I'm a little bit ashamed to say, I guess, was I had no idea, not that it makes it better or worse, but I had no idea this is something our citizens are experiencing, and it's called it's called domestic human trafficking. And so, talk to us about what is that also looking like for citizens of the United States.
And it has been happening for many years. Those sell crews that are selling magazines everywhere.
So give us an example of what that looks like, because I'm sure viewers may have experienced this.
That have been happening. Suddenly somebody knock on your door trying to sell a magazine, and it's a teenager or young adult that is trying to do that. And what happens is those they answer those ads on the newspaper that they are going to travel around the country, making a good living, and the catch there is they are going to know many places, they are going to be in contact with other young people. Yeah, they are, but they are living out of a van, working from 8 or 7 in the morning to 10 at night, and again, the trafficker is paying the hotel, and they are concentrating them. They hardly give them money to eat. If they don't sell all the magazines, their quota during the day, they are punished at night.
And so I think it's important right now to say that we are by no means saying that every job that would require someone to sell a magazine ad is that there are legitimate businesses where that takes place.
But we have to be sure.
But what we are also saying is there seems to be a trend across our state and our country that people need to be aware that if something doesn't seem quite right, it most of the time is not.
Or besides that, I rather ask somebody if they need help and find out that they didn't, that the thing was right, that be quiet about that. I prefer to be wrong and find out that it was right.
So let's move to this idea that, so we understand that human trafficking, to be trafficking doesn't mean they physically have to be moved. It means that there's something of commercial value traded for sex, to be sex trafficking. There has to be this criteria of force, fraud, or coercion. If the person is an adult, if they are a child, that does not have to be met by nature of their age. They would be a trafficking victim. We've also learned that there are domestic victims and what we call foreign national victims, people that are trafficked into the United States. And the United States is what, the second largest consumer? Of human trafficking.
Of human trafficking.
So let's talk a little bit. You talked about the importance of being safe rather than sorry, asking those questions. What might be some flags that viewers that are watching and they're trying their best to wrap their head around this topic, what do they need to be looking for?
Well, try to look for isolated or under supervision people, or coached people that they are saying something like it's a repetitive, like
they're coached,
like they are coached, or they don't realize that they are victims. Sometimes they think that they put themselves in that problem, but they know they have a problem, or they are also developing loyalty to the trafficker, because at the end of the day, it looks like they are the only ones that care about them, but they have fear, and we can sense that. They don't know the language or the culture. They told Americans and police are bad, and the arrest, deportation, lack of trust in government, and the self-blame. And other flags is they have hotel room keys, sometimes many, and what a teenager had to do with that.
So if you have a teenager or student and they have lots of hotel keys, be concerned.
Yeah, be concerned. Or if they are chronic runaway homeless youth, they keep running away, then it's something happening there. Why they don't stay?
So just chronically running away and having to be returned.
Yes. Or there are signs of branding, either tattoos or jewelry. Then suddenly that looks like they belong to somebody.
And this particular piece I was stunned by, but just a different way to frame what we see, that there could be a branding going on. So if you're seeing the same tattoo on more than one person, same symbol, same piece of jewelry, be concerned.
Yeah, be concerned. Or they are lying about the age. There are false identification. And you're noticing that they are not the age that they say. Are the inconsistencies on the story that you notice that the things just doesn't match, or the lack of knowledge of giving community or whereabouts. What happened with these sales crews is they work in one area during the day, and they move to another area during the night, and the people doesn't know where they are.
So you're talking about the crews that are going to meet some sort of sales quota. They might be, for example, in one of our counties in the morning, but then overnight they're moved to another state even, and they don't know where they are. So it's very hard to access help, and they're told to distrust police and government.
Yes. The excess amount of cash.
Excessive cash. Okay.
That's another thing.
Okay. So there are ways that we can be more vigilant in asking the right questions and paying attention to how people are acting and how they're interacting with other people in the community out and about. What should someone do if they suspect?
Well, now we have a program and we have a telephone that is a nationwide telephone where you can call and they can help you to identify if you're right or send the help that is needed. And the telephone number is 1-888-37-37-888.
3737 888. And that number will be appearing on the screen at the end of the program. And that's the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And what we found such comfort in when we learned about that hotline, first of all, the Purchase Area Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center is connected to that hotline. And so people would then be referred to our center if they had concern.
Yes.
But what we found so reassuring was they actually have people that will help screen the situation to help you figure out, to help them figure out if what you're seeing is human trafficking.
Them and they help you. You tell, okay, I saw a girl with too much cash. What they are going to help you in that moment, how to make questions if you are, or describe all the situation. And they are going to help you to figure out if you are seeing a victim of human trafficking. And if you are, they are going to refer the help that you need to help that people.
And Lupita, we are just about out of time, but one of the things that stood out to me as I sat in a presentation that you actually provided as you worked to train our staff was that there was a church group in Texas that ended up being the group of concerned citizens that exposed a human trafficking ring in their area. And so I guess I'd like to just say it really does fall to each of us, church members, community members, citizens, to ensure a better world.
That was a choir that was going to different churches, and that choir had some children from Africa that were trafficked there, and they were not paying the children. They were brought with the promise to go to school or even to make money to build up schools back in Africa.
And that church is the one that helped rescue them?
Yes.
We are out of time for today, but thank you so much for being here and for the work that you are doing. And thank you for joining us. We will be leaving you with another video to watch regarding human trafficking. Please know the Purchase Area Sexual Assault Center is equipped to serve Spanish-speaking population, and so this particular video will be in Spanish. The number will be on the end of your screen at the end. And until next time, we challenge you to look beneath the surface and make a difference in your community. We'll see you next time.
Son niños de noches eternas. Sus rostros han sido borrados. Sus voces apagadas. Son esclavos de una nueva era. Detén la explotación sexual infantil. Reacciona. Es tiempo.